Tonight, Cole Cash, aka Grifter, discovers that he is the chosen one, and even he understands just how stupid that is. Deathstroke, as it turns out, doesn't want to be bad. He's just all emo that his wife died. And both of those titles I just listed are now being written by Rob Liefeld, so are you really that surprised? All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 36 of the Not So New 52. I am your host, and I know I don't usually get serious on this show, but I do want to make one quick little announcement here at the beginning. Within the past week, there were two major deaths in the comic book industry. First one was Neal Adams, who passed away earlier on, and he didn't do a lot during the New 52. So we aren't really going to get the chance to cover him, but he did have a major influence on DC Comics in his younger days, and as such, I doubt DC would be where it is today if it weren't for him. Additionally, just 30 minutes before recording this segment specifically, I discovered that George Perez had passed away, and George Perez, of course, wrote the first arc of Superman that I was very highly critical of, but I know the behind-the-scenes action means it wasn't really all on him. He was working with what he got. And regardless, both of these artists are going to be remembered more for their triumphs than they are their failures. So we wish them both a very nice rest in peace. However, we're not here for the serious stuff. We're here for goofy people in costumes beating each other up for no reason. So let's talk about what we've got going on this week. In no particular order, on May 9th, 2012, we have Batgirl, Batman, Batman and Robin, Superboy, Green Lantern, Deathstroke, Grifter, Suicide Squad, Legion Lost, Demon Knights, Frankenstein, and Resurrection Man, all issues number 9. Additionally, we have the number 3 issue of Night Force. Now, what is coming out of that? Well, we have 2 parts of the culling in Superboy and Legion Lost. Those are coming up next. We also have, I believe, 3 tie-ins to Night of the Owls. And then Suicide Squad and Resurrection Man are a surprise little mini crossover. Because, why not? Everything just crosses over with everything now. So, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's just jump right into this week's edition of The Culling, dear God. Superboy number 9, written by Scott Lobdell and Tom DeFalco, art by R.B. Silva. This is part 2 of The Culling, with part 1 being Teen Titans Annual number 1. And that issue left off with, after they had beaten all of the teenagers who were there in the culling with them, the Teen Titans and Legion Lost, who I'm just going to call Teen Titans for the sake of this story, are now fighting against the Ravagers, which are all evil baddies who work for Harvest. Anyway, this issue opens up, and the leader of the Ravagers, Warblade, is like, oh, you guys are pretty smart at getting all those teenagers knocked out, and instead of having to kill them. And then this one Ravager named Ridge is like, oh yeah, you guys sure are a rude lot. And then Warblade just tells him to shut up, which is kind of like a running joke, strangely enough, where Ridge is just told to shut up by Warblade over and over again. But anyway, they're like, all right, let's go fight some Ravagers. And then Red Robin gets in between. He's like, no, we came here to help. They're still just teenagers. We can help. But, like, at least 2 of them are in their 30s. So, no. But regardless, they still have to fight, but they're, not aiming to kill or whatever. So, at one point, like, immediately as soon as the battle starts, Superboy just grabs Warblade and just pushes him through walls, like, away from everyone else, just gone. And Red Robin's about to send Solstice out to go get him, but then Tyrock steps in and is like, how about we send Dawnstar? Her whole thing is tracking. And he's like, all right, cool, but don't you ever tell me what to do again. So then Superboy's trying to fight Warblade and basically just pushes him into a lava pool where he's able to survive, but he figures Warblade might melt because he's made of, like, metals. But of course he doesn't, because it can't be that easy. We also get, basically the entire issue is just, hey, here's one member of the Ravagers versus like 2 members of the Teen Titans / Legion Lost. the entire time. So we get Rose Wilson versus Tyrock and Red Robin. We get Wildfire and I think Wonder Girl versus Ridge. We got, I don't know, it's just a whole bunch of crap. And they keep on bringing up things that have happened in like their own series. Like Timberwolf's got a bone to pick with Rose Wilson because of how they met in Legion Lost just before this event, like in the prelude. And they just keep doing random crap. Meanwhile, Red Robin gets with Kid Flash and says like, hey, I need you to go collect all the kids that we knocked out and get them the hell out of here. Also, maybe try to find Skitter, because she just disappeared. And they're like, all right, yeah, I'll do that. So we go back to Superboy versus Warblade, and Warblade's basically something like, you do understand that you're not special, right? All of the Ravagers are living weapons. Like, you're nothing special here, Superboy. That's why it is your destiny to join us. And then Dawnstar comes in and just takes Warblade away, just away from the fight, and drops him off saying like, well, destiny's overrated. So then, I'll get to it. It's the weirdest pop-up here. So Kid Flash is running around with Tellus and Chameleon Girl, just collecting all the kids and saving them. And then, skipping ahead a page or two, as Kid Flash is doing this, Timberwolf comes and attacks Kid Flash because he's angry about something Kid Flash had done in his past, but of course Kid Flash is completely unaware of this, so he's like, what did I do? You know something about me? And Tellus just stops Timberwolf and says like, hey, don't worry about that, your future's your own, bye. And he's like, what just happened? So then we get more of Warblade versus Dawnstar, except now it started snowing in this underground magma pool. It's just snowing now. They don't even try to explain that. So Warblade throws some rocks at Dawnstar, and she ends up getting knocked out. Superboy comes and attacks him, pushes him through some giant like mountains, craters, or whatever, and gets back into the central main part of the fight. And then as he's about to like really lay into Warblade, the stretchy dude named Hunter Bryce from like 6 issues ago in Superboy, the one who had the really over-attached girlfriend that he was all lovey-dovey with, apparently he's part of the Ravagers, and he's like, you ruined my life, Superboy, that's why I joined the Ravagers, now I'm going to kill you. And then Warblade just shows up, stabs him through the stomach, and says like, you didn't kill this guy when you met him before? Look how weak he is. I killed him right now. Anyway. And I'm like, what in the hell just happened? So then we get another rock thrown at Warblade from Dawnstar, and that's enough to apparently just knock him out. Lava didn't do it. Being pushed through mountains didn't do it. But Dawnstar threw a rock at his head. And that's enough to do it. Okay. So, the fight continues on. And apparently, they literally don't even show it happening. They just say, and the Teen Titans and Legion Lost have turned the tides. And they've taken out the Ravagers. And then Superboy comes in carrying Hunter's body. And he's like, I couldn't save this teenager, Red Robin. And he's like, it's not your fault, Superboy. You did the best you could. And then as soon as he makes a pact of going after Harvest and blah, 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 who shows up but Harvest himself and says like, oh, well, you all have enjoyed your momentary triumph over my Ravagers, but now I am here and it is time for you to die. Continued in Legion Lost number 9. So in terms of the story itself, it wasn't awful. It wasn't great by any means. My biggest issue here is that, like, this is such a paint-by-numbers story. Like, issue 1 was just, okay, you have to fight all the teenagers, and the rules say you have to kill them. But, of course, we're not going to kill them, so we're just going to defeat them. And then this is just level 2, where it's, oh, now we're fighting the super elite team of assassins, but we also won't kill them. And then level 3, Legion Lost, is just going to be, and now we have to fight Harvest, but can we actually succeed? And then whatever 4 is going to be. Like, it's so nothing. It's like, this isn't even an event. This is just going through the levels of a video game. That's all this is. And it's just like, all right, wave 1 defeated. Here's wave 2. And that's it. Art's okay. It's not great the whole way through. It's pretty much consistent with what Superboy has been. I really didn't see them pulling back Hunter Bryce B, them killing him same issue, I would say my expectations are subverted, but at the same point, I had zero expectations about this book at all, so can you really subvert that? So overall, I don't know, I give it like a 4.5, and like we're not even halfway. This is the exact halfway point through the event, if you don't count the preludes, and nothing makes me care. Literally nothing. The only other thing that happens in this, I think, is the Legion says, like, oh, we don't trust the Teen Titans yet, so we're not going to include them in our telepathic link. And that's it. That's the only thing that's happened. So that's not even character development. That's just something they're going to fix next issue. I'm tired of this event, but 4.5 for this issue, and tune in to Legion Lost number 9 to see how it continues. Yay. Legion Lost number 9, written by Tom DeFalco, art by Pete Woods. This is part 3 of the culling, and last issue, the team had defeated the Ravagers, which are Harvest's personal goons, so now Harvest shows up. And it's nothing. It's literally just, hey, let's take a look at how big of a bad Harvest is for 22 pages. So yeah, this Harvest shows up, and he apparently, in between the issues, which apparently was only 10 seconds, but during those 10 seconds, he instructed all of the Ravagers, hey, get up and leave, to which they did. So now it's just Harvest versus this specific group of teens, because all the other ones have been herded and shepherded away from the fight, and they're looking for an escape route. So Harvest just blasts and bolts at them, and literally it's just everybody gets a page to try to attack Harvest. That's all it is. That's like really all this book is. So he's got some sort of protective force field, which they call his null something later on, and they say this, they establish a telepathic link across the group, and then Bunker just runs in and says, like, I'll take care of this, and he runs up and lands a punch on Harvest's face, and then Harvest just bats him away. That was Bunker's page. So then the next page is technically plan page, where, okay, everybody, like Gates, Chameleon Girl, Bunker, and I think Tellus, maybe not Tellus, I don't know. They all take the rest of the teens and just try to get them out of the Crucible and up, to the surface. And so that's the end goal right there for that. We see Ridge, one of the Ravagers, woke up, and apparently he was knocked unconscious, so he couldn't leave when everyone else did, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure several of them were knocked unconscious at that time, but regardless. We see Chameleon Girl go to attack, and Tyrock says, stand down, but she says, sorry, I work for a higher authority. And then Harvest reveals, yes, I know, you work for the group called Echo, as he blasts Chameleon Girl away. And then basically they're like, the entire Legion's like, who the hell is Echo? What? We're going to have a talk about this. What in the hell was that? So then Timberwolf and Wildfire try attacking. It's called a null field. My bad. Doesn't quite work out. Kid Flash runs in, immediately gets backed away. But then as he's doing so, Harvest is like, yes, but I didn't expect anything less from you, Kid Flash, considering how you were raised. And Kid Flash is like, you know who I am? You know where I came from? Please tell me. But of course, he doesn't. And then he reveals that he's actually broken into their telepathic link and can hear all of their strategizing. And then he says, yes, Legionnaires, I knew about this because did you honestly think you were sent back here to the 21st century because of some virus? Nay, it was I who sent for you. And then we cut over to all the teens trying to escape. And as they're making their way through the tunnels of scientists or whatever, Dr. Caitlin Fairchild from Superboy just comes out of one of the vents and says, hey, hi, I used to work here, but now I've turned against them, and I'm willing to help you. And they're just like, okay, I guess, sure, why not? And then Rose Wilson shows up and says, like, Dr. Fairchild, my mortal enemy, let us fight. And so they start fighting. Meanwhile, Gates and Bunker are making their way down some other tunnels, and as they make their way through, Gates just happens to look over into one of like the side rooms, and he's like, "Oh my God, they have a time bubble here. Why do they have a time bubble, guys? They have a time bubble here. We can go home." Cut back to the fight with Harvest. It's literally just more random ass shit being thrown around here, and Harvest is trying to do his thing of like, here's why I'm right. I'm not a madman. I've seen the future and I look to save it via whatever this is. And they're like, okay, but you're still evil, so we're still going to beat you up. And apparently, yeah, his whole thing is he's trying to save the future. Sacrifice a few hundred teens to save the lives of quintillions. So, I don't... Whatever. He's saying that all of this is his plan. That's like, I just summed up 10 pages of this book. Is he just keeps on saying over and over again, like, of course I knew it would end up like this because I'm from the future, maybe, sorta, kinda, ha 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 ha. And so then he keeps on saying how he wants them to join their Ravagers so that they can save the future together or whatever. And then the Legion as a whole goes to attack. He just swats them all away, no problem. And he points out that the virus that they were sent back for, like, it would have eventually just dissipated rather than, like, becoming a pandemic. So, like, if they just did a little bit of, like, thinking, it would have been obvious, I guess. I'm not sure how true that is, but regardless. So, Rose Wilson and Fairchild are still fighting. And then Fairchild gets knocked on her ass. And she's like, no, Rose, I fight against nowhere because I fight for love. Everyone deserves to be happy or whatever. And she's like, that's stupid. That's really stupid. And she goes to attack Fairchild. And then Ridge shows up, knocks out Rose, and says, I heard your speech and I thought it wasn't stupid, so now we're good guys. And then they just go away. So we go back to the fight real quick. We see Superboy taking a shot. We see Wonder Girl taking a shot. And then Wildfire. He makes contact with Tellus and he's like, Tellus, I need you to put up a barrier between you guys and me and Harvest. I'm going supernova up in this bitch. And he opens up his containment suit, which unleashes all this anti-energy. And Harvest literally says, this isn't going to work. And he's like, ah! And it doesn't work. And Harvest literally forces the energy back into his suit and closes it up again. And he's like, all right, guys, we good? Have we proven that I'm invincible? You can all start by kneeling before me. And that's where the issue ends. Picked up in Teen Titans number 9 eventually. So at a certain point, it becomes laughable how amazing, crazy, unbeatable your villain is, right? Like, there's no... If you have to spend an entire issue being like, and they tried everything, and nothing can possibly beat them, and we're in part 3 of 4 of the series, you know what that tells me is that in part 4 they beat him. Or at least they managed to get the upper hand on him somehow. They think of something. If you did this in part 4, I'd be like, okay, yeah, no, this is now the status quo of them having not beaten him. But putting it in part 3, it's like, all right. And I know I'm meta reading it. I understand that. But at the same point, you know the tropes and you're playing them so straight. Like, I don't... Do something with it. Do anything with it. I will say I do enjoy some of the dialogue in this, everything that's not coming out of Harvest's mouth for the most part, or during the Battle of Rose and Dr. Fairchild, because that was all done the whole way through. Like, but occasional dialogue throughout here I've actually enjoyed, and I put that up to the fact that it's being written by Tom DeFalco solely rather than with Scott Lobdell. Art good, better than Superboy's was, but still has its weak points at times. I don't think that they really had a character sheet for what Harvest actually looks like, because it seems like everybody's been drawing him differently throughout this event. So, whatever. Overall, give it like a 5. Like, it's not great, but I also... It's just another part of this crappy event, and I can't wait for it to be over. So, yeah, that's part 3, and... Hooray, only one part left to go before I never have to think of the culling ever again. Batman number 9, written by Scott Snyder, art by Greg Capullo. This is part 2, or the conclusion, or a tie-in to Night of the Owls. It's last issue was part 1, and this technically should be the conclusion, but at the same point there's still other tie-ins happening after this, so I don't know what you want to call it. But regardless, last issue, Bruce broke out the Hellbat armor, a giant armored suit, and went to go fight some Talons that were invading his cave. And this issue is just more of that for the start. And he's going over how the Wayne brothers of Solomon and Joshua bought the mansion back in 1855, but they didn't immediately move in because the entire place was infested with bats. So they were advised, hey, you need to bring in some, like, big birds to hunt the bats. So they brought in a bunch of falcons and hawks and stuff like that, and they discovered that the best thing for the job were owls. So the owls rid the caves of all the bats, and eventually the brothers moved in. Anyway, into the fight scene. So he's fighting Talons in this giant armor, and Alfred keeps telling him, like, sir, like, the temperature's dropping like crazy, but they are tearing you apart out there. You are pretty much on the verge of death, and you need to get back into the armory immediately. And he's like, no, the doors won't hold. I have to fight them out here. I have to take them out before they get to the doors. And he's like, okay, but, like, please, like, they have a whole lot going for them. And he's like, exactly, so I get to play rough. And he starts, like, doing things that are basically killing them, which I'm pretty sure is just skirting the no-kill rule. But regardless, I guess they survive. So he fires off some, like, cryogenically frozen batarangs, and he starts taking them out. And he's just listing off a whole bunch of tech here about why the suit's so gosh darn awesome. But then as he's doing so, he is starting to lose. Like, the Talons are just chipping away at his armor. And he's tossed down next to the giant T-Rex. And the Talons just start piling on and start really knocking him out. And they're like, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to kill you. You know, you Waynes always put up such a fight whenever we come after you. Maybe next time invest in, like, a guard dog or something. He's like, I've already got one. And then the T-Rex, like, lifts up its foot and then crashes it down onto a bunch of the Talons. And they're just like, what the hell? Whatever, man. We're still going to fight you. So he still tries to, like, attack them a little bit, but he's really falling behind. And Alfred is saying, Master Bruce, I'm coming out. I'm going to help you as best I can. And he starts to activate the doors, but then Bruce shouts open, nope, override that. Alfred, stay in there. And he's like, no, please, Master Bruce, let me help. One of the Talons plunges a knife into, like, his visor, and just ever so slowly it's inching closer and closer to his face. And then he continues his opening narration where he's like, yeah, they used owls to kill the bats. There were owls everywhere, but I forgot one thing. The bats came back. And then we see this giant horde of bats just come out of the deeper caves and start attacking all of the Talons. Bruce just gets out of his armor in, like, negative temperatures, mind you. It is freezing out there, but he's whatever. I guess he's fine. And so apparently the extreme cold brought the bats out of, like, the deep dark caves. Sure, I guess that's how it works. So they start attacking all of the Talons. The Talons are going down just by the cold at this point, and then one of the Talons is trying to escape, and Batman literally runs him over with the Batmobile. And Alfred's like, he's like, nah, he's got a healing factor, he's fine. Anyway, let's go. There's an owl symbol over Gotham that I need to deal with, which apparently is resolved in Batgirl number 9. So he gets the list from Alfred of all the names of the people, and he sees that there are only 2 names left there are barely any green names left. There's only 2. Jeremiah Markham, which is dealt with in Detective Comics number 9, and Lincoln March. And everyone else is either already dead or being helped in some other Bat book. So we see a couple of the Bat family fighting, and he's like, all right, I'm going to go deal with Jeremiah Arkham real quick, and then I'm going to go help Lincoln March. So then he goes and does the entirety of Detective Comics number 9, and then he comes back for Lincoln March. And as he walks into March's, I guess, like, election office, March is sitting there, and he's as soon as the door opens, he says, Bruce Wayne, and fires a gun in Batman's direction. But we see that it was actually meant for a Talon who was, like, hiding behind the door. And the reason he said Bruce Wayne was because he's already been stabbed in the chest with the Talon's dagger, and he's just trying to cough off, like, I have a message for Bruce Wayne. You must get it to him, Batman. I know that you guys are friends. Please tell him that Gotham, cough, cough, is worth it. And then he dies with Bruce standing over top. And he looks at this piece of paper, and he sees that it's the names of a couple people who Lincoln was investigating as part of the Court of Owls. So he already has, like, a location that he thinks that these owls are going to be at. And so he's like, all right, Alfred, I know where they live. They came into my house. I'm going to burn theirs to the ground. And that's how the issue ends. There's technically a, what's it called? Backup story, but I'll be covering that on the 5th week this month. So, yeah, no, this issue was good. It was really good. I think that having the T-Rex be a defense measure is something that, like, sounds cool, but it needs to be equally as cool in use. And obviously it couldn't be something that just, did the thing. It just wiped out all the Talons. But having it just step on a couple and then not move again, that just felt, I don't know, it felt like an awesome idea that was in just like, and we used it on something that was, a little bit lackluster. And then, again, having the bats come out and all the Talons are like, oh no, bats. I feel like one of them should have been like, I'm still just going to real quick just stick this knife into Bruce Wayne's gut. Like, that was just real quick. I feel like that's something that maybe they shouldn't have been that distracted. But again, it went down to, I think I said last time, of Power Ranger rules, where there's a really hard enemy to fight, and then as soon as there's a bunch of them, they become inconsequential. So, yeah, it's got some issues. But I do enjoy the story itself. The Lincoln March thing is interesting at the very least. It gives a little bit of a moment for Bruce. Maybe because he went to Jeremiah Arkham first, it's going to use this as a thing of guilt of, I can't save everyone. And this person who is so much better than Jeremiah Arkham in, like, what he's been doing, maybe I've been failing this city. I don't know. However they go with it, they go with it. But, yeah, overall, I'm going to give this one a 7. Just 7. 0.5 doesn't quite seem worth it. But I do feel like next issue is going to be a pretty big one, considering he's now got a location for the Court of Owls. So we'll see how it goes from there. But I guess this is technically the end of Court of Owls. I don't know. There are more tie-ins, but I don't know where they fall in consequentially to this. So I guess we'll see. Batman and Robin number 9, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Lee Garbett and Andy Clarke. This is a tie-in to Night of the Owls. This issue deals with General Benjamin Burroughs, who I don't think is a pre-established character, but whatever, maybe he is. So we open up with Robin just with a metal detector down in some sewers when all of a sudden he gets Alfred's call, and just like, hey, Alfred, okay, I'm ready to help. Give me somebody who's on this list. By the way, where'd you even get this list? And he's like, I got it from a Talon's armrest, anything. So there's a Major General Benjamin Burroughs who is in charge of 15,000 enlisted personnel in just Gotham alone. He definitely needs to survive for whatever reason, and you're closest to his location, Damian. You got it? And he's like, yeah, I got it. And Damian activates a jetpack, which I didn't know he had, but he jetpacks over to where General Major is, who's doing some sort of training routine with a whole platoon. And as he's criticizing some of the platoon people, they get attacked by something. And Robin arrives on the jetpack, and he's like, that's a Talon. Talon's here for you. We got to go. And immediately some men trying to disarm Robin, and he just turns the tide on them, disarms them. And he's like, okay, do you believe me now? Like, can we just listen to me instead of fighting against this? And he's like, why should I believe you? And he's like, because your name's on a hit list. It's an elite assassin from the Court of Owls. And he's like, the old nursery rhyme? And he's like, yeah, I guess. I don't know. Can we just do the thing? And at this point, they're like, okay, well, I'll just climb down the ladder. I'll get my platoon, and we'll just go to the army base because that's like super duper secure. But as they do so, the ladder is cut, and they're trapped up on this scaffolding with only one escape route, which of course the Talon is climbing his way up. So everyone switches over to live ammo because they were just using blanks before. And of course it's doing nothing to stop him because he has a massive healing factor. So Robin fixes back up his jetpack and he puts it back on and he's like, all right, come on, jump on the jetpack, we're going to go. And he's like, I can't leave my men behind. But the men are like, it's been an honor serving with you, sir. And he's like, all right, I guess I could leave my men behind. So he flies off with Robin. But as he does so, the Talon takes notice, does this running leap and grabs onto Robin's jetpack just enough for them to start plummeting out of the air. They aren't landing directly next to each other, though. So they've got a little bit of time to pick up their stuff and see where they're going. General, of course, falls unconscious and Robin gets the location of the command post, which is apparently 5 miles up the river. So we get one page here of just a couple by the riverside roasting some marshmallows, and she's like, oh, just brown mine a little, honey. And he's like, yes, dear, I'm a master at roasting marshmallows. And Talon comes up, cuts off their heads, and leaves. It's never mentioned again, and I don't know why this page is here, but regardless, it happened. So the entire platoon, after they were called on because of the other platoon being attacked and then Major General being flown away by Robin, they're all put on high alert. They've all got live ammo going on. And as they're looking at, for whatever it is they're trying to find, Robin shows up with the Major General on like a makeshift little hospital, I don't know what you want to call it, a cot, whatever it is. And he's dragging him through the woods. And he's like, okay, here's the deal. We have no time for an action report. General's unconscious. The assassin's on our trail. I need you guys to set up a defensive mode. And he's like, why should we listen? What are you, 10? We're not going to listen to you. And he's like, I have been trained by a master assassin guild for all my life. I know how to kill you immediately right now. And you're going to listen to every goddamn word I say. Do you understand that? And so they do it. And they set up a defensive thing. Eventually they get sight of the Talon. And they do this thing where like, as one group reloads, the other group is firing, and they make sure that they don't ever let up for a second. And during this time, Major General wakes up. He's like, when did you get a field promotion? He's like, the moment you fell unconscious. Now shut up and let me do my plan. And the Talon is using bows and arrows to just take out each of the people one by one until finally they are running out of ammo entirely. And then the Talon just walks out and is like skulking towards the group. And he's like, all right, man, we're out of ammo. You know what to do. Bayonets at the ready. And they just hold a charge at the Talon. And some of them land a few of them, but most of them get attacked by the Talon. In fact, I'm pretty sure in the end, all of them are attacked by the Talon. And the Talon makes his way over to Burroughs, and he's like, it's been 236 years, but I'm here to kill you, Wilkins. And he's like, my name is Burroughs. He's like, that's what you think. And then in 2 pages that were done by a completely different artist, this is by, I think, Andy Clarke. Very well done. Looks great. It's just describing how back during the Revolutionary War, there was a spy named Edwin Wilkins who was drafted by General Washington himself to go send some information. And he passed off this information to Alexander Hamilton, and it went off fine, but then he was immediately arrested by the British. And apparently Washington had promised Wilkins a plot of land that was super duper useful to the Court of Owls. So just in case this revolution actually worked, because the Court of Owls were on the side of Britain, I guess, just in case this actually worked, they needed Wilkins dead. So he killed Wilkins in his sleep, waited a few years, killed the rest of his family to make sure he didn't have any heirs. But then one young boy survived and was adopted into the Burroughs family. Therefore, this guy, a descendant of that kid, has a rightful claim to that land, and now he's going to be killed because the Talon decides, I guess I needed to finish my original job, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure that land probably belongs to like the Joker at this point. But regardless, yeah, that happened. So then Robin fires a batarang, or a whatever you want to call it, a grappling hook, through one of the Talon's eyes. He turns his head 180 degrees like an owl and then starts attacking Robin. Robin hoists him up on a tree and then goes over, grabs the Talon's sword, and cuts off the Talon's head. And then he just walks away from the Talon's body with Burroughs. And he's like, are you sure that you killed that thing? He's like, it was already dead. And that's it. That's where it ends. It's just, he just strung this thing up, cut off his head, and then walked away. badass, but still, I don't know. It's something. So, no, overall, I give this one like a... anything 6 feels too low, but anything 8 feels too high, so I guess 7. But, like, there were parts of it that felt good, but then it just all of a sudden is like, and we're done. Like, that's it. It's just a very quick... Like, he gave his explanation, Robin fought him for 2 pages, and then we're done. And it just felt really quick right there at the end. Like, all of that intro stuff could have been... Why did we need that roasting marshmallows page? That's the one that really got me. Like, I really feel like we could have had an extra little thing, but instead we roasted marshmallows. So, yeah, I'll give it a 7. It's good, but, like, it could have been a whole lot better if it was just paced ever so slightly tighter. And the art, pretty fantastic throughout, but I will give special shout out to Andy Clarke on those 2-page spread of the history, because that's just really good looking overall. So, yeah, another Night of the Owls completed. Batgirl number 9, written by Gail, Simone, art by Ardian, Syaf. This is a Night of the Owls tie-in, and the person being saved in this issue is ostensibly Jim Gordon. It's a little unclear. So, we open up in Japan, 1944, and I guess the war effort in Japan had a bunch of schoolgirls who, it's all written in the form of a letter by one of these schoolgirls, but basically they're making paper balloons, and these balloons are then attached with bombs, and the bombs are to float the entire way across the Pacific Ocean to mainland USA, and then drop and detonate. Which I don't know if this was a real thing or not. It seems a little outlandish, but they do try to play it up if it was actual history. So, yeah, regardless, 2 years later, we're at Haley's Circus in Gotham, and someone from the Court of Owls is coming to pick up a new prospective Talon, and the leader, Haley, points out this young girl who has bandages on her face, and it turns out that she's a great aerialist, and she is able to do this, but she was actually one of the few people, in fact, one of the only people, as it's later revealed, that was hit by one of these bombs that was made across the seas. So she had her face all messed up and her entire family died. So, yeah, the guy... Immediately, he turns to Haley and he's like, "Did you do this to her?" He's like, "No, no," and he explains the whole situation. And then the guy turns to the girl and he's like, "Hey, we're going to unbandage your face, and you are going to have a new mask, a cooler mask, a Talon mask." And then we cut to modern day, where this girl is, of course, turned into a Talon, and she's fighting Batgirl already. Because Batgirl, this is before the call went out from Alfred. She just came across this Talon who just caused an explosion randomly downtown. And so fight scene breaks out, and she is Batgirl, that is completely outmatched. Talon's like knocking her off of buildings and just standing over her looking down, but she doesn't ever actually go for the kill shot. And as Batgirl is struggling to get back to her feet, the Talon leaves behind just a tiny small piece of paper, which Batgirl picks up. We cut to Jim Gordon about half hour later, walking down the street again before the night truly begins, and a guy passing by says, "Oh, I think you dropped something." And as Jim goes down to pick up whatever it is, it's an owl like medallion. The guy tells him, like, "Don't turn around, don't pull out your gun. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to work, you're going to sit at your desk, and you are not going to turn on the bat signal no matter what happens tonight. If you do, I will kill your daughter. Am I clear?" And then he just walks off, and Jim has no idea who it was, but he keeps on going into work. And as he gets there, he's like, "I'll be in my office. Don't disturb me," because he doesn't want his daughter to be hurt. So 10 minutes later, Bab's arriving at home. She goes, puts an ice pack on her wounds from the Talon attacking her, and then she looks at the piece of paper, and it's some Japanese text that has the date of November 1944, and she's like, okay, who's this person that seemingly came from 1940s Japan? That's weird. So then the night starts picking up, different things start happening, Night of the Owl style, and Jim has to just sit there as the detectives come and like say more and more crazy things are happening, and he's like, yep, get some extra police on that. That would be that's a big deal. Go team. And Bab starts putting it together, and she starts doing some research online, and she finds out about the paper bomb thing, and apparently only one family in Oregon had the actual casualties from it, the girl and her family. And as these things keep coming in and in, Jim finally just like breaks, and he's like, okay, fine, somebody give me a cell phone. Everyone, like, not my cell phone, they're clearly tracking that, but give me your cell phone. And he calls up Barbara, trying to warn her, like, hey, look, I'm going to be doing something, please stay safe. But as soon as he tries to call Barbara, voice on the other side of the line is the guy who stopped him before, and he's like, we tried to warn you that this would happen, Commissioner, shouldn't have crossed us. And as the detectives step outside, the air is just covered in the paper balloon bombs, and they all start detonating. Finally, Alfred puts out the call for the Talons. Barbara understands what's going on as she's back in her Batgirl gear, and she starts making her way down to the GCPD because that's where she sees all the balloons. So Gordon, in this moment, the other detectives are like, we got to get out of here. And he's like, no, I have to go light that bat signal. And they're like, are you seriously? And he's like, yes, the people, tonight's going to be a long night, and the people need to know there's still someone out there fighting for them. So he makes his way up to the roof as the building is literally just constantly exploding. And as Batgirl arrives, she comes across the Talon again, who's basically just sitting on the roof of the building, just filling up these balloons. So they get into a fight again, and Batgirl's going a little bit more lethal than normal because she knows about the Talon's like regenerative stuff, so she's throwing batarangs like into the Talon. Talon is throwing a few throwing knives, which take Barbara off her game. And finally, Barbara realized, like, okay, I can't fight to wound. I have to fight to kill, or else she's going to kill me. And she does a kick that knocks the Talon all the way off the roof, like multi-story GCPD, all the way off the roof down to the ground. And as she lands, she hits one of the bombs. It explodes. And then Barbara walks down, and she's like, oh my God, you're still alive. Like, how can you still be alive? And you could have killed me. Why didn't you do that back then? And we see that this Talon, underneath her Talon mask, had another mask on of, like, a beautiful looking woman. And we don't know what she looks underneath it. They don't actually show. But we see her right in her blood on the ground, because I guess she can't speak to Batgirl. It says, I have a mask too, I understand. So that's why she didn't kill Barbara. Anyway, Jim finally gets up to the roof. He turns on the bat signal, and he's like, he's still on the phone with these guys, and he's like, I made it up here, you bastards, and I'm going to show everyone that Batman's still out there. And he goes to turn on the light, and they're like, oh, we knew that you would make it up there. That's the whole reason we told you not to go up there, because we knew that you would do it just to spite us. And as he flips it on, it turns into an owl signal, showing the Court of Owls symbol over the city, and he's like, no. Damn you, no. And then Batgirl looks up and sees that there, and she's like, has Gotham been taken over? And that's where the issue ends. I don't know why they don't just turn back off the signal. That seems like the easy solution here of, oh, that's not Batman, click. But regardless, this was fine. It was an okay issue. It's weird because this is actually like the earliest placed Night of the Owls issue. Like everything else, everyone had to wait for Alfred's call. This one, like, she already had an entire story before that call went out, and she was already in the middle of things before it got there. So interesting. I'm wondering what the whole paper bomb thing, though, because like she didn't make the paper bombs unless she is the Japanese girl. But then what was the point of the Haley Circus thing? I don't know. It seems a little bit overwritten at times, where we didn't need a whole lot of that. I like the Jim stuff, though. The Jim stuff was interesting, but giving the Talon's backstory of there was a Japanese girl who made a paper balloon. The paper balloon then killed another girl in Oregon. That other girl in Oregon became a Talon, but then was also making the paper balloons. What? Seems a bit complex. So overall, I'm going to give this one a 6.5. I think it's decent. But there's just a whole lot of leaps in logic here that don't really make a lot of sense. But if you can just turn off your brain and enjoy the story, or enjoy the action, it's a good enough story on its own. So 6.5 for this. Green Lantern number 9, written by Geoff Johns, art by Doug Mahnke. The last issue left off with Sinestro seemingly becoming a Indigo Tribe member and coming after Hal. This issue just picks up showing exactly when he became the Indigo Tribe member. We see them chanting some spell thing as he's doused in some liquid or whatever and strapped to a table. And we see him have a flashback to a moment that I guess he felt bad about. And we see him meeting up with Abin Sur's sister named Erin Sur. They get along. They get down to it. And then at some point, she's trying to talk him out of doing something, which I believe is just him taking over the planet Korrigar. And he says, no, I'm going to keep doing this. But this is what this is what I have to do, but I don't want you to be here for the fighting, so please leave the planet and never come back. So then, I guess that's them breaking up. The war breaks out between the Korrigarians and Sinestro, and then as they're fighting, this itty-bitty little kid shows up, opens up his jacket, shows he's a suicide bomber, and just causes this massive explosion in the city. And Sinestro's okay, but it turns out Erin Sur was still on the planet, and she died in the explosion. So that's what Sinestro feels bad about, and he gives in to the Indigo Tribe Light and becomes a tribe member saying, knock. So, cut to present, Sinestro's pinning down Hal Jordan, and instead of doing anything like evil, he just comes up and he's like, I'm so sorry for everything I've ever done to you. And he's like, Hal's just like, okay, that's not right. You've definitely been brainwashed. All right, here we go. So he blasts away Sinestro with his ring and goes to the Indigo Tribe members. He's like, I thought that Green and Indigo were on the same side. And they're like, yeah, we are. We're going to teleport you safely home. And then Hal's like, can I take Sinestro with me? I kind of need that to happen. So he's like, no, he's staying here with us. And he's like, well, then that's not going to work for me. I got to find the on and off switch to get Sinestro out of here, so bye. And he makes himself a drag racer car and then just takes off into the jungles where his ring says the Indigo Tribe Central Power Battery is. And they say, do we pursue? To which they respond, knock, which I assume is an affirmative. But they don't ever actually say that, so they do take suit after him. So then real quick, we cut back to the Guardians of the Universe, and they're investigating Starstorm because of that one issue where Sinestro met up with him, and he's like, hey, where did Sinestro take the Book of Black? And he's like, I don't know. And they're like, okay, well, you're a non-important D-lister, so we're just going to kill you. And then they kill him, and then they say they got to go find Sinestro. Anyway, cutting back to Hal, he manages to track down this big-ass cave with indigo light inside, and standing in front of it is a little tiny, best I could say is dwarf man, like Tolkien dwarf, but without a big beard. And he's standing there with a staff, and he's like, oh, a Green Lantern. You're pretty ugly. And he's like, yeah, okay, at least I can speak to you, and I understand your language. I need information about the Indigo Tribe. What's up? And basically, this is just an info dump back and forth. So trying to give it an order here. Knock apparently means compassion be with you, and it is also the name of the planet. This guy's name is Notromo, which is apparently used in the oath of the Indigo Tribe. So he's a big deal. And he's not a member of the Indigo Tribe. He's not wearing the ring, but he did create them with Green Lantern Abin Sur. And he's now the guardian of the Indigo Light, as per what Abin Sur charged him with. And apparently what happened was there were violent explorers that came to his world many, many, many centuries ago. Abin Sur showed up, knocked all them out, and they came across an indigo light inside this cave. And they used the heat of the light to make weapons, but they discovered that the weapons that they used against the invaders caused them to have remorse for a second. So they're like, oh, this light must be compassion or whatever. So they became friends and they learned about the indigo light. And then they made a ring, because of course they did. And then many years passed, Abnett left, and he came back with this woman who apparently killed his child named Iroke. And when he put the Indigo Tribe ring onto Iroke, it caused her to become Indigo One, like the main Indigo Tribe member. And she just broke down crying and apologizing and mourning over what she did. And then he kept bringing more and more terrible, awful, sadistic people with violent streaks and putting rings on them so they would be compassionate and, all that stuff. And it wasn't a matter of redemption, though. What Abnett was actually doing was that he had a vision of the future, and he was building an army because he saw Blackest Night coming. And then Hal interrupts, and he's like, that actually already happened, and we won, so... yeah, and so then immediately Nostromo's like, oh, all right, well, we got to get to work. I'm going to have to... The whole reason he built the army wasn't for Blackest Night. It was because of what came afterwards. Apparently, the Guardians of the Universe are the absolute biggest evil, and we're going to use the Indigo Light to make them compassionate and make them stop being evil. And Hal's like... okay, well, here's this bad news. Abnett is dead. And Nostromo's like, oh, that's too bad. Well, everything is lost. And he just starts destroying the central power battery. And Hal's like, could we not? But it's too late, and he literally does. He blows up the entire central power battery. And at that moment, the Indigo Tribe arrived to track Hal. So everyone immediately goes offline, loses their compassion, and turns back into the biggest group of murdering, sadistic killers across the universe. And they're all here with Hal and Sinestro. So that's where we leave. I like it. I think it's a nice... I mean, it's just a huge info dump for the Indigo Tribe, but considering I didn't know anything about them really, I'm happy to have it. But just the way that they treat Nostromo, because he's so sick of all this crap, like the whole way through. He's just an old guy who's just like, well, this is the end. Goodbye, everyone. And then he just blows it up. Like, I like it. He's a nice character. Art's fantastic the whole way through. I like the way they do Sinestro's thing he feels bad about. There's 2 or 3 pages of just pretty clear padding in here, but they make it look great the whole way through. Art's fantastic, so I can't really complain that much about it. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it an 8. I think it's a good way to say, okay, here's the Indigo Tribe backstory, and I'm assuming that hasn't already been given before. So just setting up this one time, it's done well in story, and they make it interesting, so 8 for that, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we get it back online, because clearly they wouldn't just kill an entire core that quickly. Deathstroke number 9, written and art by Rob Liefeld. Oh, God. So, it's a pretty short one overall to describe. Last issue, who cares? It was a different writer and artist. Doesn't matter. This issue, we open up with a bunch of mob families all meeting up and saying, hey, so Deathstroke's been killing off a lot of our day-to-day operations, so we need to hire an even better mercenary who's going to kill Deathstroke. It's going to cost us $10 million, but is everyone agreed? And they're all like, yep. And then they hire a guy named Deathborn, I believe it is. Deadborn. But he's not actually part of this story, so just letting you know that's there. This issue picks up with a complete character shift where it turns out Deathstroke, everything he does is because he's really sad that he lost his wife, and he's been trying to fill that void. He's not just saying this, this is his internal monologue. This is him talking to himself. And by the way, he's now really snarky all the time, too. So, thanks, Rob Liefeld. Anyway, he gets attacked by as he's mourning his wife in a graveyard, he gets attacked by some alien cat-looking thing, and he uses his super reflexes to stop it dead in its tracks. And then he sees he's surrounded by a bunch of different guys in ninja suits, so he puts on his armor, which I guess he just has to say armor on, and it comes on. And he starts fighting them off with his power staff, which again, He's throwing all this out there, and I understand it's the start of technically a new run, and he has to explain a bunch of different powers and stuff because he goes through the whole thing of like, I was experimented on, and now I have reflexes and blah 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 blah. But like, it's really not good the way that he's like, here's why I'm great. So anyway, as he's fighting across these guys, he's suddenly just picked up into the air, and there's apparently a telekinetic guy who's just holding him up there. Some more reinforcements arrive, and he's like, did these idiots honestly think that I'd bury my wife with all the normal just riffraff and scum? No, I own this whole hill, and all the other gravestones here are all just markers for bombs. And he presses a button, and the whole hillside explodes, taking out all these ninjas. So then as he does so, he realizes that, like, oh, these guys were just looking to, like, test my abilities. Someone here just wants to, like, hire me. I know this gig. So then we see the guy, and it's the cat alien, a woman with purple hair, and then a dude who looks straight out of the 90s just are standing and be like, hey, yeah, we just need your attention. We realized that you would take the time to dispatch us, and we already have done whatever, blah, blah, blah. So basically, the guy's showing up saying, here's the thing. We have an extremely difficult deal. We want to hire you. We need you to catch an alien, and we are willing to triple your highest rate in order to do so. And this guy that you're after is the greatest predator in the galaxy. So we figured we'd hire the best mercenary on the planet. Deathstroke's like, all right, you've stroked my ego. Tell me more about who you are. And these kids, the ones that are with this main guy, 90s guy named Maxim, the girl is named Callista, who can project things. There's Tigor, who is a Tigor. And then there's Primus, who has telekinetic abilities. And together they are the Omega Youths, which I'll get to. So Deathstroke, Peabody walks up and says, like, hey, Deathstroke, are you taking this job? And he goes, yep, Peabody, I'll keep in touch. And then he just leaves Peabody, so sure. So anyway, they get into a helicopter, and while they're in the helicopter, Deathstroke's like, if anything happens to me, I've released my entire body to explode, right? And he's like, cool, that's why we want to work with you, Deathstroke. So then they arrive at some facility or something like that where they keep extraterrestrials because they just store aliens here. And they're introduced to someone named Zealot, who is a white-haired woman in a skimpy red suit. And apparently she is the lead security officer for this particular building. And Deathstroke's like, she's like, Deathstroke? There's no way he's going to be good enough to hunt a Zarnian. And Deathstroke's like, excuse me, you're the one who let him out. And she's like, excuse me, I don't work at the building that let him out. I work here. Shut your face. And basically, they just lay down the law that the Omegas and Zealot have to be in this story. Deathstroke is not allowed to leave them behind. They have to come with. That's part of the deal. It's apparently insurance just in case Deathstroke isn't up to the task, because somehow these other guys will be. So they set up these deals, and Deathstroke wires over the money, they wire the money to Deathstroke, and then they show the video of exactly what happened. And they show Lobo. It's Lobo, the main man, in his introduction to the New 52. Apparently he crashed into the New Mexican desert some many years ago, and they've been holding him ever since, but he's been slowly but surely breaking through every one of the restraints that they put on him, until finally they have literally the strongest thing they have on him, and he still busts out. And he immediately takes the opportunity to kill every single person in the building. He punches, they show very graphically him punching through people's faces and ripping them in half. And he says, he just looks dead at a camera and says, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my starship, I'm going to rendezvous with Sheba, and then I'm going to activate a world breaker to blow this planet to bits. But first things first, Director Maxim, I'm coming for you. And that's where we leave off, is that he made this personal. So I don't have a lot of love for Lobo. I haven't read a lot of Lobo comics, so I can't say whether or not this is in character. I feel like it isn't. I haven't read a lot of Wildstorm outside of New 52, which I know Zealot is from, so I don't really have a lot of love for Zealot. But I feel like they messed her character up pretty bad too. But the one that gets me is that one of the few New 52 comics I read was Tom King's Omega Men, which was a very good look at like war and stuff like that. And then this takes those characters and says, no, actually, they're part of a stupid teen team that all are working for a shadowy government organization. And I'm like, oh, wow, you mean like every other character you've introduced over the New 52? I'm shocked. Ugh. I don't like it. And the Rob Liefeld art is not helping the Rob Liefeld words. So literally nothing in here is good. Also, at the beginning of the book, Deathstroke, he's sad about his wife, and he's saying, oh, I might be hanging up my armor if something cool doesn't happen. And, of course, something cool happens. And it's just like, none of this feels like the Deathstroke I've gotten to know for 8 issues. Like, the new writer came on and just says, no, actually, he's sad. That's why he does things. That's why he acts out. No, he's an asshole. Treat him as such. This gets a 4. No, this gets a 3.5, actually. Because 4 I have listed on my paper is passable. I don't think this is passable. This is 3.5. It's just not good, and I am not looking forward to this thick-ass trade of Rob Liefeld. Dear God. Grifter number 9, written by Rob Liefeld and Frank Tieri, art by Scott Clarke. It's a new arc. I don't... And I can't even tell you what happened last issue because I genuinely don't remember it. But this issue opens up with Grifter. He is snowboarding down the Swiss Alps being chased by 3 completely pitch black figures that I think are supposed to be Damonites. But regardless, they're skating down and basically he just is recounting, oh, I hate those Damonites. They're so bad, but I like the way they die. And they just get into a huge fight over and over the whole way down the mountain until finally there's just one Damonite left. And he sheds the dark outfit and it turns out he is an elite Damonite, meaning he's bigger and he's red. And so he comes up on Grifter and he's like, why do you keep running, bro? I'm gonna kill you no matter what. And Grifter's like, okay, go for it. And he keeps on doing snarky comments, and as the elite's about to attack him, this random woman dressed in green jumps in with like katanas and guns and whatnot and just starts kicking the elite's ass, and Grifter is literally like completely useless here. But then during the fight, she gets knocked on her ass as well, and Grifter, who's standing over behind a tree, fires off a shot into the kneecaps of the elite. And that gives her just enough time to kick the elite off of a cliff and send him plummeting to his, I guess, death. So then Grifter and this woman start talking. Her name is Nico. And basically she's like, okay, so you understand me and you're on the same side. Let's go. We got stuff to talk about. You're part of a bigger war. So they go and they head to a little cabin somewhere in the Alps, and basically she just lays this all out. There is a war going on. This isn't just you. This is all of Earth versus the Damonites, and we are part of the resistance movement, and we need you in here. And basically she lays down exactly what's been going on of the Damonites that Grifter has encountered up to this point are all scouts. They were probing Earth and making sure that it was A, easy enough for the Damonites to take over, and B, suitable for their inhabitants. And unfortunately, apparently within the past few issues, they have decided, yep, this is good enough, let the actual invasion begin. And so that's why they're sending elites to the planet to now act as like the muscle. But apparently, in Damonite culture, there is a prophecy of basically John Connor. There's someone who's going to rise up and lead the resistance and will be the only force in stopping them. So they're trying to kill that person. And of course that person is Grifter. He is the special one. And he's like, that's that's stupid. That doesn't exist. Like, what? But I mean, I guess I could be if you really need me to be. So does that make me like the leader of the resistance now? And she's like, yeah, I wouldn't phrase it that way, but like technically you kind of could be. Like, we'll take what you say into an account. But they say they need to go and meet up with the rest of their team down in some meetup point later on. But then they realize that there's noises around the cabin that they're in, and they're like, oh, well, we might have to fight our way out. This is it. But it turns out that it's actually just the rest of their group who have shown up here because apparently the rendezvous point was swarming with Damonites. So they're meeting up here, and one of the guys' name is Deathblow, and he's like, so you're the chosen one, huh? Well, what are you gonna tell us to do, oh glorious leader? And Grifter's like, oh boy, what did I get myself mixed up in? Bwomp, 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 bwomp. So, just a few things that I briefly skipped over here. He for some reason keeps humming and hawing about whether or not he's going to join the resistance, and there's just this one like almost full page here of him just all grim dark and like shadows. He's like, you just show up here out of nowhere and I'm supposed to believe everything you say? And I'm like, yeah you are. You've been through some crazy stuff over the past few weeks and or months. Maybe, I don't know, listen to them. And then she punches him for like not taking this seriously, I guess. It's whatever. And also when she's explaining who the Damonites and like what they do and all that, they actually show Hellspawn, who I think debuted in a Grifter issue but mainly took his story into Superman. From what I gather, he was expelled from the Damonites in that story, so why he's showing up here as what seems to be their leader doesn't make any goddamn sense. But regardless, yeah, the Grifter's got a new team. So, it's okay. I was really scared when this started because I read Rob Liefeld writing, but it turns out he's in charge of just the overall story, whereas the dialogue was left up to Frank Tieri, and that's not... Frank Tieri did a fine job. He did perfectly good. I don't know how much input Rob Liefeld actually had, but it doesn't seem to be in the nitty-gritty. I feel like he's just going to be... Because, like, we have a guy named Deathblow. That's Rob Liefeld. Like, even if he's taking a character from earlier continuity, the fact that we're using him at all, it's Rob Liefeld. Art is pretty good. It's got a little bit more of like a, I wouldn't say painterly style, but it's just not as gritty as it has been. It's a little bit more refined than House style, so it's definitely got something going for it there. And I like the way a lot of it's done. The inks are pretty damn heavy though, but what are you gonna do? So overall, I would give this one I give it like a 6. And mainly it just comes down to, he had that girl like 3 issues ago that was working with him, and then they killed her off, and then they're just like, okay, but here's a new girl that's like literally could just be the exact same. There was no in fact, they even say like the same stuff of like, the Damonites have been here for so long and we have an arsenal and we're going to war. It's literally the same character. They just killed off the original one so that they could introduce this one. I don't understand why that was necessary, but regardless, 6 for this, and I guess we'll see what old Bobby has up his sleeve. Suicide Squad number 9, written by Adam Glass, art by Fernando Dagnino. Last issue was whatever issue, but the real last issue in terms of continuity was Resurrection Man number 8, because this is a direct follow-up from that, and in that, Resurrection Man had made a friend in Kim Rebecca, and they were about to go find out the secrets of his past, and then the Suicide Squad came in and shot Resurrection Man in the head. His name is Mitch Shelley, by the way. So this issue picks up with Deadshot coming in being like, all right, we did it. Mitch Shelley shot in the head. Can we go now? And they're like, all right, get the body. Let's bring him in. And we see that in addition to all the normal Suicide Squad members, we also have a new one of Iceberg, who I guess has the ability to make things out of ice. So, yeah. Anyway, he tells Iceberg to go find a vehicle to transport Mitch, and then everyone else has to help take care of the body situation. Kim was, of course, standing there next to Mitch, and she's like, "Oh my God, Mitch Shelley is dead. I'm so sorry." But then the Suicide Squad are like, "Hey, should we kill her?" And Waller tells them, "No, bring her into me. Like, I'll take care of that." So Black Spider puts her to sleep and then literally smokes bombs himself out of there. And it's like, you could have just walked, dude. And then Waller we have a little page to set up the future story of she's watching Harley Quinn go through a psych evaluation at Belle Reve, and apparently Harley Quinn is no more. It's now back to Dr. Harleen Quinzel. So yeah, take that for what you want. Anyway, Iceberg got themselves a vehicle to transport the body, and turns out when Deadshot said get something that nobody will look twice at, he got a school bus that has Godmobile painted on the side. So that's a choice. So then they just get to talking briefly, and apparently El Diablo has decided that he is God's vengeance, and as such he has plans on what to do. And Deadshot's like, dude, if you want to kill, just kill. Like, you don't have to make it some holy mission. But then, of course, Mitch Shelley, his whole power is resurrecting, and he is starting to do so, and there's this bright light going off, and then he suddenly explodes up. And Waller apparently didn't inform the Suicide Squad that was his ability, so they're like, is he coming back to life, Waller? And she's like, yeah, probably, you might want to get ready to fight him. And they're like, God damn it, Waller. So the bus explodes, and Mitch's powers this time are electromagnetic, like working with just electromagnetic stuff, I guess. He's got like balls of light, but also magnet abilities. It's something. So Light comes in and tries to like attack him with a little light show, and then he just like, no, and just shuts her down immediately. King Shark throws something and bonks him on the head, to which Deadshot then starts firing off bullets at him, tries to kill him again. But then before the bullets connect, Mitch does the whole Matrix thing and like stops them midair and then fires them all back at the team. King Shark comes up from behind, tries to eat Mitch, and he fires off some electricity to get King Shark off of him. El Diablo throws some firepower at him, but Mitch just manages to get the upper hand. The whole time, by the way, he's screaming out like, "Tell me where Kim is! She was the only one who could help me! God, I hate you all so much!" So Light and Deadshot manage to get together, and they're just like, okay, we need to at least lead him to the like rendezvous point, the separate point, and they can take care of him better there. So Light throws up a huge light display to blind Mitch, and then they just start running. Mitch immediately gets his bearings about him and starts walking away after them. And then El Diablo wakes up, looks over at King Shark, and sees that Yo-Yo is crawling out of King Shark's stomach and slithers down into a storm drain. And Diablo's like, "Excuse me? What?" And I thought the same. I mean, I knew he was in there, but still. So they're running through the woods, and they're basically chewing out Waller for not telling them about Mitch's power set, and she's like, yeah, suck it up and do your jobs. So as they're doing so, Light is so angry at Waller that she keeps on like just saying like, you know what, I'm gonna kill Waller. That's right, I'm gonna do it, because how dare she say all that stuff and put us in harm's way. Psh, she thinks we're helpless because of the bombs in her neck, but I'm gonna kill her. And Deadshot's like, okay, can we focus on this right now? Can we just do this? And as they run through a cave trying to escape Mitch, who's firing off lightning bolts at them, Deadshot's like, all right, here's the deal. I need you to block a lightning bolt for me. And he picks up Light by her shoulders and holds her in front of one of Mitch's lightning bolt blasts, seemingly killing her. So that's a thing. We see that Waller's actually talking to Kim Rebecca, and they're just talking about Mitch's past because he was a complete and total asshole in his life before he became Resurrection Man, and everyone apparently knew it, and so they don't feel bad about doing this stuff. But now that he's changed and has forgotten his past, Kim's like, no, he's different, please don't do this to him. And Waller's like, I don't care, I really need the resurrection abilities. So yeah. So anyway, finally it's Deadshot versus Mitch in this cave. And Deadshot holds up his gun to fire off another shot. Mitch is like, you know that won't work. Like, I stopped all the bullets. And he's like, I'm not aiming for you. And he shoots the rocks over top of Mitch in order to collapse the cave on him for just a second to give him time to run. He makes it out to the end of the cave, and it's this sheer drop cliff with like a lake underneath. So he has to do what he literally calls the fugitive jump, where he jumps over the edge, and Mitch gives chase. Mitch actually jumps out after him. But Deadshot knows how to dive. Like, he knows how to hit the water and not explode, more or less. But Mitch hits the water and falls unconscious. There's a whole bunch of Walters, like soldiers or whatever, standing there ready to take Mitch captive. But Deadshot immediately walks over to one of the trucks, grabs a chainsaw, and says, all right, we're going to cut this guy up so that way he can't come back. And that's where we leave the issue. This is actually continued in the next issue of Resurrection Man, number 9, so be sure to listen in on that. But I don't know, this one, I liked it, but it was definitely just a crossover for the sake of crossover. Like, the only thing that really got forwarded here was Yo-Yo coming out of King Shark's stomach, which didn't need to happen in this story. Like, that just happened because it happened. And I guess maybe you could say El Diablo. Also, Light's dead, but do you really care about that at all? Like, that just happened. So, yeah, it's fine. It's not blowing me away. It's just a story of the Suicide Squad meets person from other book, which seems to be the marching order for a lot of Suicide Squad stories. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one it's a 6.5. And most of that comes down to I really do actually enjoy Resurrection Man. So it does an interesting way of bringing him up of just, it's furthering his story. I like his story, and I like the fact they bring it up here. Do I wish I didn't have to read 2 different books in order to get that full story? Of course, but I was going to anyway. So, yeah, 6.5. Resurrection Man number 9, written by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, art by Jesus Saiz and Andre Guinaldo. So, last issue was actually in Suicide Squad number 9, where it picked up from the Suicide Squad cliffhanger from Resurrection Man number 8. And basically all you need to know is the Suicide Squad captured Resurrection Man, and they're about to chop him up into a bunch of pieces so that way he doesn't immediately resurrect, I guess. But then also, Kim Rebecca was brought into Waller for questioning. So this issue picks up. The body doubles are calling Director Hooker. And they're like, hey, we see Mitch Shelley. That's the good news. Bad news is that he has been captured by the Suicide Squad and they're about to, dismember him. So what should we do? And should we... Because we are a government organization, and technically Suicide Squad is as well. Should we be getting involved? Is this something that we can fight another organization over? And Director Hooker's like, yeah, no, Waller is not going to get her hands on Mitch. You get in there and you get Mitch any means necessary. So then we see Deadshot about to chop up Mitch Shelley, but then the body doubles walk in, and they're holding full-on miniguns, and they're like, hey, how's it going? We're going to need that body, and we're not joking around here. And Deadshot's like, are you serious? No, my handler's not going to allow it. And she's like, well, my handler's not going to allow you to have it. It's like, well, then it sounds like our handlers need to talk before something happens here. But then immediately Mitch wakes up and says, too late, and he comes back with metal alloy powers, so he's made of an amorphous metal, and he just starts moving his way through everybody here, including the body doubles, because they start firing on him once he literally rips off the gun of a tank. And as soon as they do that, he just grabs one of them and is just like, before I was killed, before I woke up in Arkham pretty much, you told me that you would help me. You lied. You're shooting me again. She's like, no, we still want to help you. We still want, but you're going around killing people. We thought you just went feral again. No, we're totally on your side. And he's like, I think you're still lying. So he throws them through the woods and just starts basically not really even making a run for it, but he goes back to the Suicide Squad. They're all being airlifted out by helicopter right now, and Deadshot's trying to be like, hey, this is getting, like, there's a turf war with some other government organization. We're getting evac on here now. And Waller's like, no, you bring me Mitch Shelley. That is your orders. And so Deadshot stays around for just an extra second, long enough for Mitch to catch Deadshot and, like, say, what did you do with Kim? Where is she? And he's like, why do you want to help her? She's the one who sold you out. And she's like, she didn't know what was going on at the time. Where is she? And he's like, you can hurt me all you want. I'm not going to tell you. And then Mitch just starts slowly, like, encasing Deadshot's head in the metal. And then we cut away. So Waller calls to... well, first off, Waller's talking to Kim and saying, like, all right, look, Shelley's coming. And then we just get a recap of how Waller knows that he was a total asshole when he lived his normal life. And now he's going to be arriving here because... he knows that Kim is at this base, so what are we going to do about that? And basically, Director Hooker calls up Waller at that point and says, why are you messing with my operation? And Waller's like, we had no idea Mitch was there. We just ran into him by happenstance. And now we're bringing him in for you. This was totally our plan all along, is that we were working with you. And Hooker's like, you are such a bad liar, I can't even begin to describe. And she's like, yeah, well, either way, I will get you Mitch Shelley by the end of the day. Bye, click. And so then the body doubles call up Hooker, tell him how Mitch Shelley got away on the helicopter and it's heading towards the Suicide Squad base. Hooker has the coordinates for that base, and he tells the body doubles, hey, just meet him there. Like, just go there and try to deal with him when he gets there. So... helicopter lands, and the rest of the Suicide Squad's already there, including Light, who I thought died last issue, but she didn't. So, okay. Anyway, we see Deadshot standing on the edge of the helicopter, and it turns out that Mitch has completely encased him and is, like, maneuvering his body so they won't out-and-out kill Deadshot, despite the fact they totally would. But regardless, he's moving Deadshot's body on his own. And he just starts plowing through the Suicide Squad who are standing in his way. Meanwhile, Kim's like, hey, why, if you want him in here, why are you putting up such a fight? Like, just let him in. And Waller explains, no, he thinks he's here to rescue you. Like, we have to make him think you're here against your will. We can't just let you just go out and do that. And she's like, well, hold on, I got a plan to get the both of us, like, we can get him calmed down and, like, everyone can be okay. So as he's punching his way through the Suicide Squad, we see that Kim actually comes out, and as soon as Mitch sees her, he detaches from Deadshot, which knocks him out slightly. And she explains, like, look, I managed to weasel my way out in all the confusion, but they were talking about a plan. They're going to use some crazy, like, magnet thing that's going to be able to kill you in your metal form. You have to turn out of your metal form, Mitch. And Mitch is like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And so he turns back into a person, and then immediately Waller just shoots him in the head. And she's like, all right, good job. Now, let's go ahead and do what we need to do. And Hooker gets a call from Waller saying, hey, sorry, turns out Mitch got away. Well, we won't interfere anymore. This is the last time you'll hear from Suicide Squad. Bye. And Hooker's like, God damn you, Waller. So we cut back over to Waller, and we see that the whole reason that she went through the trouble is that she actually cut off Mitch's hand and is using it to basically try to figure out his powers from that. So, yeah, that's the current state of his hand. However, when Mitch comes to, along with Kim, out in, like, the woods outside of the Suicide Squad base, because I guess they were just knocked out and dumped out there as part of the deal, Mitch, his new hand is already regrown, and he's like, why do I have a new hand? I can tell the skin is softer, and it's got a little scar around the wrist. And Kim's like, I don't know, and I don't know how we escaped, but I hope that you can learn to trust me, because I really, really want you to. And he's like, are you hitting on me? And she's like, yes, entirely, but I also want to help you. So, also one reveal is that Amanda Waller put a bomb in Kim's neck. that's kind of a last page reveal, but that happens. So I like it. I still like the Resurrection Man storyline. I feel like the whole Suicide Squad diversion was unnecessary. I feel like it was just the thing of, hey, we need two books to cross over that are both like a little bit lower in the sales to hopefully get the readers of one onto the other. I mean, stuff did come out of it, but even the one thing I thought last issue was Light died, but she's still alive, so clearly not. The only big thing that I think really came out of this is that Waller has Resurrection Man's hand, and Kim has a bomb in her neck, which could result in something, but honestly, it doesn't feel like it's going to be something that does. Like, why is Waller going to care what happens to Kim after this point, and why is the hand ever going to pop up in Resurrection Man story? It would only ever come up in Suicide Squad, I feel like. So, I don't know. It just feels a little bit whatever to me. Overall, though, I am going to give this one a... I'll give it just a straight 7. It's not amazing, but it is, it's good. It's a good issue. It's fine the whole way through. Art is pretty good, and I like how Mitch uses his powers on Deadshot. So, yeah, fine issue all around. It's just not blow my hair back with the concept, I guess. Demon Knights number 9, written by Paul Cornell, art by Diogenes Neves and Robson Roca. Last issue was just the group making their way into Albacerum, and Merlin died. He was killed by a Daemonite. So this issue picks up with the princesses overlooking their arrival of the Demon Knights. One is Princess Alba, the other is Princess Serum, and they're like, wow, these guys kind of suck. And then we get a whole rundown of who they are, and just in case you're joining the book now, and I'm just going to skip over that, except that the only thing that they list off for Horsewoman is that they know literally nothing about her. She is completely mysterious down to her own name. So, yeah. So the Demon Knights arrive, and they're like, this place is supposed to be like the new Camelot, but everyone is really, really sad. I wonder why that is. And Vandal Savage is still being all boastful and like, whatever, man, we get a reward. To which Al-Jabir, starts fighting with him, saying how he deserves nothing because he betrayed the group. And Vandal's like, oh my god, it was part of my plan. Can you please get that through your thick skull? And they start, physically fighting, to which point Al-Jabir throws out some sort of lightning technology to shock... I mean, it looks like he just throws a lightning bolt out of his hand, but I assume that it's technology. Regardless, one of the princesses arrive and is like, hey, you guys are here for a reward, but I can just as easily arrest you if you'd like. So they all are invited into the palace, and they all get adorned in some beautiful robes. And apparently the rumor around town is that the princesses are actually in love, and they are to wed once Albacerum can officially be called the new Camelot. So, yeah, that's the thing. So the Demon Knights are all around, and they say, hey, okay, here's the deal. You guys did great, and you will get your reward, but we're willing to double your reward if you can help us with this one tiny little problem. And they bring in Merlin's body, to which Etrigan immediately freaks out and is like, I was this close, he was here, and he's dead, and now I can't get my goddamned curse lifted, and he's about to, go punch Merlin's body. But Siriuston jumps in the way and stops Etrigan from attacking, and is basically just mourning the loss of Merlin, saying oh, sweet dragon, giver of blessed burdens, so long farewell. So they're all just talking a little bit and saying how, okay, so the murderer, we tracked the scent of the murderer, found a weapon on one of his assistants, who had also taken his own life shortly afterwards. But the strange thing is, the wound on Merlin has vanished. He's still warm, and he smells of roses, to which Xanadu chimes in being like, hey, have you guys ever heard of Avalon? It's like an island out near Britain, and it may or may not be the afterlife, but you can go there in either body or spirit. And odds are Merlin's spirit is there, and all you would have to do is just get him to leave Avalon, and the spirit comes back. The issue being is that no one has ever left Avalon before. Like, you go there, you get eternal life, you don't come back. So Xanadu says, like, okay, here's the thing, though. I do have a plan. I think I know a way off of Avalon. I'm not going to tell anybody because that's a trade secret, and I don't want you guys not needing me, but I think I know a way. And the best chance that we have to stay alive on this whole thing is that we have Etrigan. And then Etrigan is like, yes, we will need a ship to take us to Britain, 12 barrels of mead, and many, many magic weapons. So they load up a ship with all that stuff. And there's just a page here of Exaristos saying, like, yes, before I didn't know my purpose in life. I was just a wanderer, but now I feel I've finally found my calling. To which Horsewoman replies, cool, glad I shot you then. So we cut over to a page of Algebir, who's still looking at Vandal Savage being Vandal and not trusting him at all, but realizing that they do still need him because he has certain traits that are needed. And then he thanks one of the guys who let them in for giving him a whole bunch of new gadgets and weapons. And then we see Xanadu talking to one of the princesses, just saying, like, here's the deal. We're giving you this little scrying stone. Use it to contact us. If you try to take off with our stuff, we will know and we will come and kill you. And Etrigan's like, don't worry, we won't go anywhere. And he's like, I don't trust you at all. Xanadu, are we good? And she's like, yeah, we're good. And then she also lets in, like, hey, I know about your thing with the other princess, and I know you are waiting for New Camelot, and you can't really have a New Camelot without Merlin, so I promise you we will be back with Merlin. You have my word. So then we show an hour later. They're in the middle of sailing. It's a magic boat, apparently, and it doesn't take any sort of crew. Vandal Savage literally can do it all just on his own. He's just steering the boat. And the time is up for Etrigan, and Jason comes back. So the plan has to be put in place here. So they switch places, and Jason is welcomed by Xanadu. And we also have a page of Etrigan down in hell talking to Lucifer, and he makes his way forward and basically says, like, hey, I found a way to Avalon, and it has all of these souls of all these great people, and I plan on taking it in the name of Lucifer the Almighty. What do you say to that? And Lucifer's like, I like that style. What do you need? Then we get a page of Sir Easton talking to his horse, basically. But the thing is, the horse talks back. The horse is actually able to speak and saying, like, yeah, Horsewoman's horse has been talking to me, like, this whole time. And she tells him a lot of stuff you need to be wary of. And then Exaristos walks in and says, like, are you talking to your horse? And Sir Easton's like, no, that'd be silly. So anyway, back up on the ship deck, we have Vandal Savage being like, hey, you two have crossed the British Channel before, right? To Xanadu and Jason. He's like, yeah. Cool. What's that? And there's a giant-ass sea monster coming to attack them. And that is where we leave off, is that giant-ass sea monster. So, yeah, this is the start of the new story. It is... They've arrived, and they need to now go out on a quest to get Merlin back from the dead. Gotta say, I like it. It's a good setup to it. A couple neat reveals in here in terms of Sir Easton's horse can actually talk. Like, that's what Exaristos heard was the horse's voice. So, yeah, it's not just in Easton's head. No, overall, solid issue. Sets up a good news story. I really like where it goes in general. I think that they need to do something more with the Algebir/Vandal Savage thing. Just because them being vaguely angry at each other and then lashing out every once in a while, I don't know. We've only had it for like 2-3 issues, but I feel like it's already kind of played its course, so it needs to get somewhere else there. But it's fine for now. I give this one I'm torn between 7.5 or 8, and because I'm torn, I'm just going to go with the lower side of 7.5, but it is very good, and I highly suggest checking out Demon Knights if you have not. Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E, number 9, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Alberto Ponticelli. Last issue was a whole thing of finding the son of Frankenstein, and the bride of Frankenstein left S.H.A.D.E, and yeah, it doesn't really tie in that much to this issue, but this issue picks up as basically a tie-in to Animal Man. I mean, they're both written by Jeff Lemire, so it makes sense, but still, we have Frankenstein called in to Shade City, and Father Time basically tells him, hey, new mission, there's a missing superhuman. His name's Buddy Baker, aka the Animal Man, and he, he's like a D-list hero. He hasn't done anything that big, but a few days ago, his entire family dropped off the map, and we don't know exactly where they are. There was also a detective named Detective Carl Crenshaw, who was last seen talking to the family. He's also gone missing. And when the Baker house was investigated, there were a bunch of dead animals all around. So, yeah, this is weird, and it's weird enough for S.H.A.D E. So maybe go in and find out what's going on. And Frankenstein says, yeah, all right, by the way, when I'm done with this, we're going to have a talk about how you handled the whole my son and wife thing, because I might actually have to take a leave of absence. And he's like, yeah, sure, okay, whatever. So they go, and then Father Time's like, if he tries to leave, he's not. I am not going to let him leave. So they arrive at the last known location of Buddy's family, which was his mother-in-law's farmhouse, and they hear and feel something very wrong going on. So they head into the woods nearby the house, and it's Nina and Frankenstein, by the way, and they just talk a little bit about how Father Time has some questionable methods of getting work done. And Frankenstein questions whether or not it's actually for the greater good or if it's just for his own motives. But as they come across this riverside, they find the body of Detective Crenshaw, which has just been swollen up and is just this disgusting mess of a human, which fits in line exactly with what we saw in Animal Man. But as he's reaching around, he's like, maybe Animal Man did this, maybe something else, I don't know. There's a whole lot of flies around it, though, so he's been dead for a little bit. So then Nina comes up and wants to take some tissue samples, but as she's going to grab a tissue sample, she immediately starts speaking with the voice of the Rot, which is, of course, the being that actually inhabits Crenshaw right now. And he's like, who's touching our meal? And Frankenstein pulls Nina off, and we see the head of Crenshaw detach from the body and then sprout legs and start crawling along like the Thing. And it's like, who disturbs our feast? Yes, this is a meal for the Rotlings and me. And we see a whole bunch of smaller little creatures start just coming off from Crenshaw's body, like made up of his flesh, and start moving towards Frankenstein. And Frankenstein's like, okay, we need to deal with this, because this isn't science or magic. This is like some primeval nature that's come back into the world. And Crenshaw's head leaps up and bites Frankenstein's arm, and is just like, yes, good. You will become a new vessel for the Rot. And wait a minute, you don't have any rot in you at all. What in the heck are you, man? And he's like, I'm forbidden science. I am unflesh. I am Frankenstein, as he shoves his sword through Crenshaw's head, effectively actually killing him. But it isn't exactly killing him, because, the Rot goes off of dead things, so he just comes back with a whole bunch of smaller little Rotlings, and immediately Frankenstein's like, okay, we need more weapons. The sword's not going to do this. I need fire. So Father Time teleports in a flamethrower, to which Frankenstein just unleashes hell on all of these Rotlings, and they all scurry into the river to try to put themselves out. But just when you think the situation's out of control, the Rot then spreads to a bunch of fish that were in the water, and they start popping out with fangs and teeth and whatnot, and start crawling after Frankenstein, along with all these flies and the original Rotlings, to which Frankenstein is like, Father, we have a code 666. The dead are walking the earth. I'm going to need the biggest bomb we got. So they are he's like, are you sure? I can call in the creature commandos. We can get them in there. And it's like, no, no, no. Anybody else who arrives here is just a liability that can be turned. We need to nuke this place. So he calls in what's called a black bomb to the location, and he's like, are you sure? Like, Nina's in there. And he's like, yeah, no, I'll take care of it. Just launch the black bomb. So Father Time basically pulls out the nuclear launch codes, pulls out a black bomb to the location, and it essentially atomizes all living tissue within a certain range, which, destroys all the Rotlings because they were still technically life. But Frankenstein shields Nina from the blast, and he's actually immune to the effects because he isn't technically living. So yeah, that whole thing happens. The site is essentially nuked, and Frankenstein's like, maybe the things my wife said were right. Maybe I am some level of an abomination. And Nina, grateful for the save, turns and it's just like, you know what? You aren't a man, Frankenstein. You're so much more. And then she places a hand on his hand. He smiles. And they sit just looking at the now evaporated river and seared landscape around them. So yeah, that's that. That's the, I guess, tie-in to Animal Man shortly. I like it. I think it was a nice little thing of like, it just felt like Jeff Lemire, he believed that he left this one little loose end over on this side of the story. And he's like, I'm writing another book. I can just go ahead and wrap it up in there real quick while also furthering that book's character development. It was good. It was good all around. I really have nothing bad to say about it. And if you've been reading Animal Man, it fits in perfectly with where we left that stuff. Like, this was just solid from any point that you view it. The only downside I would really say about it is that, honestly, it feels like it could have gone longer. Like the rot in Animal Man is such this like monstrous force that can never be defeated. And yet here it's like, oh, we just atomized all life and that did it. And like, I understand S.H.A.D.E's got a lot more tech to their side than like Animal Man does. So it makes sense that they would actually have something to deal with it, but it just felt like this was more than a one-issue thing. So maybe it is. I don't actually know whether or not this story continues on to future parts of the book. Hopefully it does. But yeah, no, it's solid all around. I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it an 8. I think it's actually really, really good. And I would suggest for if you're reading any of the Animal Man stuff, this is a perfect little thing that you can just slot in the middle and not lose a single thing out of it. Night Force number 3, written by Marv Wolfman, art by Tom Mandrake. This issue, I gotta be honest, I don't really remember what happened last issue. I know that they were left in a graveyard at the end, so there's that. But this issue does pretty good on just recapping everything that's happened over the past 2 issues on the first page, and framing it in the way of Jim saying that he will help Zoe and do it whatever way she wants. So we open up with a flashback to Chicago in 1932, and how someone is narrating that there is a woman who is working in a speakeasy who has the same crescent birthmark on her neck, and this guy is just waiting for her to get off because he is going to basically follow her into her house and kidnap her, and he is known as a gatherer. So we cut back to present day, and Jim is giving a tour of his childhood/current home to Zoe and just describing how his dad was an FBI agent and he would sit at his desk and figure out all these things, and he was always so in awe of what his father did that he tried joining the FBI as well, but he didn't pass the test and he became a cop. But the one thing that he did find was the link between all these different women who were kidnapped that were pregnant, and the women themselves were gone. They never showed back up again, but occasionally the babies, once they were born, showed up halfway across the world in some other place. And the only way that they knew that they were the same was that they had a crescent birthmark as well on their neck. And we get a glimpse of 1852 Dakota, where a woman is sheltered up during a blizzard with her husband, and this man busts in and grabs the woman, sees the birthmark, and comes to gather them. And then the husband tries to fight back, but the gatherer uses some weird magical energy to basically drain him of his life force. And some neighbors manage to see the very end of this as he's magically teleporting the wife and the baby away, and make sure to talk to the husband, and the husband says like he had to see her birthmark. I don't know why. Please avenge my baby, and dies. So then about 7 months later, baby shows up in Barcelona, and clearly it must be the same child as the other people. So at one point they take a trip to Spain where the father looks into that specific crescent birthmark, and he does all of his researching on his own time because the FBI really doesn't care. But then Zoe stops Jim from explaining this whole story. He's like, look, yeah, no, I get it. I understand all this, but like, what are we going to do about it? And what does this birthmark even mean? So that's it for the Jim and Zoe stuff. Now we move over to this senator that we have been talking about for several issues now. And I don't think they ever actually say his name. If they do, I'll let you know. It's Senator Green. So there's that. Anyway, he's there with his, I believe, pregnant wife, who he's trying to find out from the doctors what's causing these migraines that he's having constantly. And on the news, there's a politician running for governor of whatever state, and it's apparently Georgia, and he's running on an extreme left-wing policy. I bring it up because I don't know if it's going to be important, but they're just like, well, it's a good thing we're not running against him. Doctor comes back and says, look, we can't figure out any reason why you aren't, like, why you're having these migraines, so here's a mild sedative, hopefully it can help. And they go back into the car, and the Senator Green goes about his day. Meanwhile, his wife, there's this red room of, like, strange-looking G-men that are all making decisions about his blood pressure and whatever like that. And his wife actually walks into this red room and is just like, all right, well, I'm pregnant. I'm ready for the next perfect specimen of Generation 10. Meanwhile, the senator he's going to be put into this position. Like, he'll be reelected, and then we'll also have all these other people that we're keeping tabs on in their own respective positions of power. So then we will be finally ready to do whatever it is they're doing. Meanwhile, Senator starts having another migraine. He goes into his office to get an Advil, but as soon as he opens up his door, he opens up the door to the Wintersgate estate, and Baron Winters is there, and he's like, hello, I've been waiting for you, Senator. And before he can even really get anything out, the Senator is magically teleported or disintegrates via the green energy, and the Baron's like, how do they keep getting into my house? God damn it, I'm supposed to be able to keep these people here. Like, nobody should be able to deal with this. Maybe I don't understand my full place in this yet. Regardless, I have to do something about this. So he calls up, I think his last name is also Green, but it's spelled differently, and he calls up the woman that originally got Zoe out of the hospital and was like, hey, look, I've got one last task for you, and then yes, you're free from my hold. So this woman goes and talks to this hospitalized man named Professor Kane, and basically she's just there to deliver a message, and the message is that the harvesters and the gatherers are there. But before she can even get it out, Kane is like, no, I know you're here from Baron Winters. That guy ruined my life. I lost an arm and a leg, and I have serious cancer because of the stuff he put me through. Like, whatever he wants, he can go F himself. I'm done with this. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I really am. I just have to tell you the thing that I said I had to say. And she says that the gatherers or harvesters are there. And as soon as she says that, he's like, all right, fine. And he starts getting just immediately teleported into the Wintersgate estate. So then we cut back to this weird, like, temple thing where all of these masked women in, like, blue headdresses or purple headdresses have this weird green little baby. And they say, he's ready for gestation. And then they take off their masks. They spew this black, like, spiderweb fluid thing over it, encasing it entirely. And then they just stick it up on the ceiling and say it'll be ready to hatch in, like, 6 months. And that's that. That's where we leave off. I genuinely don't know what to make of that. It's very strange. So, I don't know. This one, I'm getting it more as the time is going on. And I get the gist it's going for of this bigger mystery of like, who are these people? What does this mean? Why is this happening? And I understand that, but it hasn't given me enough to latch onto that I'm able to remember the pieces of the mystery from issue to issue. So I probably, before I go into next issue, I'm going to have to like reread the first three just because I'm really am lost on like, did we know who this senator was? And what did Zoe and Jim actually agree to? And what's going on with the Wintersgate estate? Maybe it'll make more sense now that I'm 3 issues in. But honestly, I get the mystery they're going for. I just haven't been given enough to care about it. Art, however, very good. Don't have a problem with that. So all in all, I give this one like a 6.5. And that's really just because I need something more to latch onto. And it also feels like there was a whole story told before this that I don't know whether or not I should be aware of going into this. It's confusing and not in a good way. So 6.5, hopefully you can turn it around. It's got a few more issues to do so I guess we'll see. And that's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this May 9th, 2012. And just as a reminder, there is a 5th week at the end of this month where we will be covering all the backup stories that were included in any of the issues we've talked about over the past, 3 months. And for this particular episode, there was a backup story in Batman that will be covered then regarding, I think it's a story about Alfred's dad or something. So be sure to check that out if you are at all interested. However, it's been a long day for me. Just to pull back the curtain a little bit, I'm recording this on Free Comic Book Day of 2022. And by the time I managed to make it to my local comic book shop, they were sold out of every single Free Comic Book Day issue they had. So if anybody has a copy of Dark Crisis number 0, hit me up, because I am not looking forward to having to eBay a free comic. All right, you don't want to hear about my troubles. Let's talk about comics coming out next week. May 16th, 2012 had the number 9 issues of Batwoman, Birds of Prey, Catwoman, Nightwing, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Supergirl, Green Lantern Corps, Captain Atom, DC Universe Presents, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Blue Beetle, and Legion of Superheroes. Additionally, we have the number 8 issue of the miniseries, The S.H.A.D.E. So it seems like next week we're getting the biggest dose of Night of the Owls we have had yet. Luckily, no culling, so that's always a plus. I think next week's going to be fun. But you know the basic stuff by now. If you want to hit me up on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. If you want to give me money, Patreon, Mild Fuzz TV. If you want to send me that issue of Dark Crisis number 0, just tell me. I'm serious. First printing only, please. All right, I'm done. Thank you very much for watching / listening, and always try to remember that if it ain't broke, don't fix it.